So I wrapped recording my Jungle Cats video last Friday, and I said to myself, the weekend, I can take it easy. It's going to be a low-key weekend. You know, prices are kind of down right now. Everything's kind of stalling. There's a couple releases that are going on that I think are going to do well, but for the most part, I think it's going to be a low-key weekend while everybody waits for the end of the month when FTX comes out. Wrong! Wrong. This weekend was so insane. There was so much that happened. There were mints that went crazy. There was drama. There was FTX announcements. There was intellectual property discussions. This video is going to be jam-packed with what was the most wild weekend in Solana NFTs that I've been a part of since really Solana NFTs started. I was around when we minted monkeys. I minted like 6 of them. So I like to think I'm a little bit of an OG, even though it's only been like, 3 months at this point. But still, nonetheless, this was a wild one. So in this video, we're going to break down everything that happened. Now, I'd encourage you to watch the whole thing, but there's going to be chapters at the bottom if you want to skip to the parts that you care about. So, let's go. So I'm looking at my notes because so much happened this weekend that I literally had to just start jotting them down. Usually I can just keep these things in my brain, and as you've seen, you've watched my content before, I literally just ad-lib everything. I just talk from the heart the whole time. But this time, it was literally so much stuff happened in the last 72 hours that I had to keep notes on my notepad about what is it that I want to talk about and what order that I want to talk about. So here's how we're going to do this. First of all, we're going to talk about the marketplaces themselves. There's a lot of stuff that happened. We saw a new marketplace launch with Alpha, and then we're expecting FTX's launch to be absolutely imminent at this point. Speaking of FTX, we'll talk about how they went on an accepting spree, talking about all of the things they're going to be listing. We're going to talk about the market in general. We saw a slight pullback last week. What's causing that, and where do we think it's going to go? What are the things that I aped into this weekend? There's a couple of them that I was particularly fond of that the market quite hasn't caught on to. But then we're going to wrap up talking about the big things that happened this weekend, which is going to be focused on the penguins, the rogue sharks, and the meerkats. So with that being said, this is going to be full of just so much info and so much alpha, and including a guest appearance from an attorney to talk about one of the biggest events that's going on right now in the entire environment. And I need to let you know right now, first of all, nothing that you're about to hear should be construed as legal advice. This is, again, just a conversation that I and my friend are having with our friends chatting about NFTs. Nobody was paid for any of the content that you're watching. There was no money exchanged hands here. This is all genuinely coming from the bottom of my heart, which is the way I like to do things. If you follow me on Twitter, you've seen me post the DMs where I tell people that I don't accept any sort of paid promotions. Then, outside of that, nothing in this video should be construed as financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a financial professional. Again, I'm just having a convo with my friends about things that I am super passionate about. You should fact check me on everything, and all of you reply guys lately have been doing exactly that, which is a good thing that you're doing your own research. Then, beyond that, you should do what's best for you and your family and your situation. I don't know your situation. I can't tell you what to do. I can only give you information that's happening out there in the ether. So, with that said, let's take a look at some of the marketplace action that's going on right now by talking about Alpha. Let's go. Like, so much happened this weekend, especially on Twitter, that I legitimately had to start, bookmarking tweets so that I could quickly find them later because they all lead into the things that I really care about. But we're talking about the Alpha Art Marketplace right now. This was created, I believe, by the Soul Piggy Gang as their marketplace because they were struggling to get some traction with other marketplaces for their exact protocol that they want to do. The Soul Piggy Gang, which you see right here in the center of the screen, what they set out to do is they wanted to build a marketplace where all of the fees that they collect, all of the royalties that they collect, are then returned back to the holders of the Soul Piggy Gang. I believe that's how they're going. I don't hold a piggy on myself. I'm just going to take an L on this one and say I missed out on it because now it kind of feels like I'm too late to the game. I know a lot of people are going to reply and say, you're not too late, you're early. Well, yeah, we are early to everything, but I do kind of feel like this one I may have missed out. I like to get in really early, and I didn't. Now, the concept of fees coming from an exchange and then being handed back to holders. Is that a new one? No, we've seen this before. This is what Solarians did when they built Digital Eyes. All the fees going back, well, that may be a little bit different, but the concept is exactly the same. But this launched, I believe, yesterday, and I mean, they were super aggressive in adding collections right away. Immediately, if we just go to Explore Collections, it's so incredibly fast. I think that's the first thing that people notice immediately, is that it's incredibly fast. So let's click on the Meerkats, because we're going to talk about the Meerkats later. Now, does this look familiar? It sure does. It looks a whole lot like OpenSea. And you know what? I like it. I like that it's so fast and that it looks familiar. It looks like a familiar UI and UX. The filters by the attributes over here on the left-hand side. So glad. Ooh, look at the laser eye right there for 20 Sol. That's a steal. We're going to talk a lot about the Meerkats towards the end of this video, because there is a lot going on in that world right now that we need to address. So if you're interested in the Meerkats, hang tight. But the idea that I think here is, as people are transitioning, from Ethereum to Sol, that is an event that is happening. We're seeing it. It especially came up last weekend when the Meerkats launched, and we saw Ethereum whales ape into the Meerkats. They were enticed by the 100% royalty sent back to the holders, for sure, but also the simple artwork that's very reminiscent of Bored Ape Yacht Club in its simplicity. I think that was also something that really attracted them. It was almost a brand that they could identify with, but it was something that was truly unique. And that's what's going on there. So the point is the alpha art launched, and like, it is pretty much unanimous that everybody absolutely loves this exchange because it's so incredibly fast. Clearly what they've done is they've done a lot of preloading. They did a little bit of Redis cat. I'm guessing. I'm not privy to these things, but I'm guessing they're caching a lot of data in memory, so that way it could load very, very quickly using something like Redis. And then from there, stuff is already pre-indexed and populated. I'm sure the servers themselves are scaled very high to handle an influx of load, and they're doing a great job. So we're seeing a lot of things, a lot of very popular projects: Trippy Bunnies, Rogue Sharks, Red Panda Squad, Meerkats, Solsteads, Monkeys, Apes, Aurori, Gecko, your top blue chips, your top volume producers, all at the top here. They were very, very quick to implement other protocols, other smart contracts on their website. And in my opinion, and Pesky Penguins, we're going to talk about them. In my opinion, I think that this is clearly the best user experience for shopping for an NFT that we have right now. That's no disrespect to other exchanges, because we've seen major strides coming forward in the realm of like Magic Eden. I had a great experience with Magic Eden recently, and I'm very big on them. But this is simple, fast, familiar, and to me, it's just, they say A-class trading, and I agree. I think this is A-class. So Alpha Art launched. As we like to say, we're bullish. We're bullish on Alpha Art. I really like this, and therefore, since that feeds into the piggies, I think that means you're bullish on the piggies. Even if you don't hold one, by trading on Alpha Art, you are benefiting the piggy holders, and that's something interesting. So there's that. Now, the other news that just threw everybody off guard kind of was FTX. So I'm trying to figure out where's the best place to start with this. Let's just go over to FTX. So what happened with FTX this weekend? Well, what they've done, if you saw recently, if I go to the FTX for traders, built by traders, blah, 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 and we scroll down to the shadow posts that we know about. Let's keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Where'd they go? I brought this up last week. Now I got to scroll through a whole bunch of tweets until I find it. There it is. We saw them drop this. That they're like, hey, the 5 leading volume hyped up NFTs are going to be launched on FTX. There was Apes, there was Aurori, there was Thugbirds, there was Monkey, and then they're like, oh, don't forget about the Geckos, because the Geckos stormed the scene and they're the hottest thing on the planet. And we all started to think, okay, FTX is going to be pretty exclusive. They really only want the winning blue chips on their market. Not quite the case. After this thread kind of blew up, Brett, the president of FTX, just went on you get a listing, everybody gets a listing, like Oprah, kind of spree, and that's exactly what happened. Now, like everything and their mom, I shouldn't say that. A lot of projects that you wouldn't expect to be listed on FTX are absolutely going to be listed on FTX. So if you kind of jump in the thread, you see a lot of people like pestering Brett, like, "Hey, Brett, is this going to be listed? Is this going to be listed?" And Brett kind of started replying this weekend, telling everybody that they're going to be listed. Actually, what I'll do is I'll jump back to my profile because I retweeted a bunch of them. Let's scroll down until I can find some of them. Great example, the Penguins, which again, we're going to talk about. They created their own one where they said like, "Hey, Brett, don't forget about us." And he's like, "Eyes, can you DM me?" And all of a sudden that conversation starts up right there. Yep, there's Panda Street's approval. They tweeted it that they're in the show now. We also saw, I mean, I could just kind of rattle them off in my head. We also saw like the Foxes were approved. Red Panda Squad was officially approved. Snakes were approved. Turtles were approved. A lot of good projects, legitimately good projects, were approved to be listed on FTX. It was all kind of done. Brett was literally just like tweeting it. They're in. It was crazy that so many projects were approved. There we go. Like, so here's kind of where the thread starts right here. There's Bone World that was approved. Trippy Bunny, they'll be in the mix too. It all just kind of starts with this big thread where FTX is like, and particularly Brett, like, Brett was really the GOAT yesterday, one of the GOATs yesterday, where he went on a spree letting everybody know that their favorite projects are going to be listed on FTX. There was one important exception that we're going to talk about in detail later. Let me scroll back down to the tweets and bring it up right here. Based on their FAQ, they launched an FAQ yesterday where you could read about this, but this is a big thing that's going on in Solana NFTs right now. We've seen this a lot where Solana NFTs are giving any sort of royalty distribution back to the holder or even advertising the distribution to the holder. FTX will reject any NFT from a collection that distributes or advertises the distribution of royalties to NFT holders. So immediately that means like Piggies and Meerkats and all of these other projects that had even some distribution sent back are not going to be listed on FTX. Does that mean those projects are dead? No, this is a big conversation, which is why I'm saving it towards the end of this video. But just know that FTX, we also expect it to be launching, actually we expect it to be launching today, Monday. It's imminent. Within the next 72 hours is kind of what I've been told, but with a very high percentage of it being today. Of course, this is crypto. This is NFTs. You shouldn't take any of these things for gospel. You should always kind of take basically everything that you hear as a recommendation, not a set in stone. Be flexible and know that this is not a small undertaking. They'll get to it when they get to it, but it is like a very high priority for them. And we all expect this to be a big deal. FTX is the largest exchange in the United States. It's like one of the very largest in the world. It's got millions of users and billions in capital. It's like really close, neck and neck in volume with the amount of volume that Binance does. So all of a sudden we've got all of these people who are trading crypto, and we just say, hey, by the way, we got NFTs too. It's like if we just bring our NFTs to the market, like a farmer who brings his corn to the market, guess what? That's where people are buying corn. Well, that's exactly what's happening here. And now these people could potentially have the ability to buy NFTs with Sol. If we're providing our own NFTs to the marketplace, then they'll pay with Sol. But if we mint directly on FTX, they could pay with credit card, they could pay with fiat cash, they could pay with Ethereum, or they could pay with Sol. They get to choose what they want to get paid in. Come on, that sounds amazing. And that's what FTX is going to be bringing to the table for Solana NFTs here any minute now. Okay. So that's the marketplace recap of what happened over the weekend. Basically, Alpha Art, people love it, launched super fast, great UI UX. FTX launching any minute now with way more listings than we ever expected, which I think is a good thing. It's going to bring more visibility and more options to the consumer, and it's going to attract more people into the Solana ecosystem. Very bullish on the Solana token in general, based on it. Other cool things that happened this weekend. Jungle Cats released their zombie skin. Really cool. They've released a few skins over the weekend. Okay, so things that I aped into this weekend. Let's just scroll up into my profile, and we'll talk about this because this is actually going to set up the next two conversations. If I bring up my Solstead, which is in my profile here. You saw me purchase the Solstead last week. This one right here is one that there's something about it. This one was called Cyber Pharmacy. And, I aped this one, like totally degenerately aped. I love the artwork. There's something sci-fi about it, very ex machina about it that made me, start to like push my imagination, like what's going on here. There's a little bit of lore, something like an alien robot cyborg race is developing cures through medicine. That's why they've got these plants in front of them that I think is really interesting. Their project themselves is focused on alternative medicines, things like CBD or ointments and things like that. They're hooking up holders with benefits like this. Then there is a royalty distribution for people who hold what they call arcanes. The arcanes are anything that has a full body attribute, which is what you're looking at here. See how the artwork is one seamless body here? The attributes themselves, they could have different arms, different body, different neck, different face. Whereas the arcanes, there was only like 89 of them, and they have the full body armor, so to speak. Those people will get some form of royalty redistribution, which is an interesting incentive that wasn't very well received by the people, because then they're like, well, then what incentive do I have to hold commons? They do have incentives. I'm not very well versed in what they are, because quite frankly, I didn't care about them. I really only cared about holding the arcanes, and I really only cared about holding the arcanes because I think they looked the best. This project did not get off to a great start. The floor dumped immediately. There was a lot of people in their Discord who were literally doing that, like, can the devs do anything to make the price go up? It was honestly kind of sad. And then the devs or the mods who were in Discord, who were like super worn out from like 48-hour days, didn't handle that very well. They've cleaned up that mess quite a bit, and now I think the project is stabilizing, and I think they're going to head in the right direction in the long term. They've already made some PR about that. They tweeted at me letting me know that, they acknowledge like we didn't get off to a great start, but we're working really hard to make sure that this goes a long way. So I feel good about that. But again, my motivation for buying this was almost 100% based on I just really like the art, and it stretched my imagination. I don't really care. I'm not looking to flip this anytime soon. I just kind of wanted to hold it. So scrolling on down, first of all, you've seen this a few times now. You saw the penguin, and that's a big talking point that we're going to talk about later. And if I keep scrolling on down, let's talk about the sharks. The sharks launched this weekend, finally. If you're an OG, there's another one right there. It's kind of right there. If you're an OG, you remember the sharks coming onto the scene like almost immediately after the Degen apes came onto the scene. It feels like within a few days after the Degen apes met, we started seeing the sharks. They've been around for a minute. They've had a great website, a great presence, a great community, high-profile people like Redacted J on their team building out their launch, and it was a particularly interesting launch and a very good and clean mint. So let's talk about what their mint was. So this was their mint page here. What they did is they did what's called the Fair Launch Protocol. And this was an interesting thing that they did, that there was a little bit of controversy surrounded about it. Basically, what you did, first of all, was they had to set what the price of mint was going to be. So what you did is when you logged in here, you were given an option. You could pay 3 or 4 Sol, and then there was a slider button in between. So you could choose anywhere in between. But you're not choosing your price. You're just placing a bid, so to speak. So what they ended up doing is that, let's just say they got 30,000 bids, which is pretty close to accurate. It was just over 30,000. And the average bid ended up being 4 Sol. So what they did is, out of the 30,000 bids, they took the average of all of the bids that people placed, and that was what the mint price is going to end up being. If everybody had set theirs to 3, the mint price would have been 3. This is called game theory. It's kind of like, what is the person on the other side of the wall thinking right now? How could we play this game together? And I'm going to tell you right now, I put it on 4 because I believed 100% that everybody was just going to set their price to 4. There was no way that anybody was psychologically going to feel like, I'm not going to be priced out of a rogue shark, something we've waited on for 2 months, over 1 Sol. So I'm just going to set it to the max, psychologically telling myself I've got the best possible chance of getting one if I set it to 4. And that's what the mint price ended up being. Like literally everybody set their price to 4, when everybody could have set their price to 3, but they all set their price to 4, and that's what they did. And that was what phase 1 was. The interesting thing, though, about this is when you set your price to 4 and click commit, it took the 4 SOL out of your wallet and kind of held it in escrow for the next few phases. But here's the real controversy. They charged a fee to do this. They charged an additional 0.1 SOL fee. And nobody expected that. Nobody saw this coming, and that caused a lot of drama on crypto Twitter. Like, what's going on? 0.1 SOL just to try. And it's like, okay, guys, we're talking $15. Okay, like that's, you know, I'm really sorry if like you only loaded your wallet with 4, you know, and then you had to go back and, you know, get an additional 0.1. We're talking at the time, SOL was $150, so, you know, a 0.1 SOL is going to be $15. So it costs you $15 to get a chance to get one of these, you know, a very highly anticipated, very competitive Rogue Shark. Okay, like the fact that they're doing this fair launch protocol, the fact that they have a very high profile team designing this and making sure it goes on smooth, the countless thousands of hours that they've put into this project, no doubt. A $15 fee is fine. That's what it costs to play the game, shrug it off and move on. But people really got up in arms about this 0.1 SOL fee. So what the Rogue Sharks ended up doing was they ended up donating a 100% of all of these fees towards a charity. Yep, right here. Here's the tweet. We're excited to announce that we'll be donating the 0.1 participation fee we collected during last night's raffle to charities we want to support. We're talking to our legal to figure out the next steps, and we'll keep you in the loop about what happens next. I have no problem with this. I had no problem with them keeping the money because they did something amazing. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, or what at least everybody has been saying to me about this, was, Knox, like a 0.1 fee with 30,000 entries is 3,000 SOL. And I think, yeah, but they did something truly amazing, and it only cost you $15 to get into this. Like, why get up in arms over $15? But, you know, people did. So this is what happened first. Everybody placed their bid or bought their raffle tickets, so to speak, and it cost them more or less 4.1 SOL to get entered into doing this. Then, you know, the transaction fee of like 0.0005 SOL. And that's what phase 1 was. Phase 2 was wait. There was a 30-minute countdown while they just made sure the protocol was acting correctly. They aggregated and made sure everything got done the way they wanted it to do. They got the money in the wallet, blah, 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 blah. And then they set up what was going to happen next, which was phase 3, where the actual raffle happened. Now, this one was actually pretty interesting because Redacted J, or Jordan, literally recorded his screen. And it was literally going through each one of the wallets that entered to get a Rogue Shark, and it was letting them know if they won or not. So, simple math. There was 30,000 entries. There are only roughly 5,000 sharks. You had a 1 in 6 chance of getting a shark. That's how the math works out. So it was literally going through the list of all of the wallet addresses that had, you know, spent the money and tried to get a Rogue Shark. And the last column literally said won or lost. And it was just fascinating to watch it go through the entire process of whether or not it's winning or losing. Then, finally, when it was done, it took about 30 minutes to go through all 30,000 and determine whether or not that wallet address was going to get a shark or not. Once it was done, they tweeted out, like, hey, it's done, refresh your screen, and if you won one, you'll have a mint button. If you didn't, you'll have a withdraw button, and you get your money back. So, I didn't win, which is fine. Not upset about it. I've only waited for this for months. Only tweeted about it a million times. Only DM'd the team offering to help in any way that I could, but I didn't get one, so I just went to secondary and bought some. That's just what I did. So, all in all, this was an incredible mint, because there was no longer first come, first serve. There was no longer bots. It was just literally everybody gets to put their name in a hat, and they'll draw names out, and whoever gets drawn, they're the winners. They're the ones who get to mint a shark. And I love it. I love it. I hope more high-profile projects do this, because this felt good. This felt truly fair. I was not actually bitter or salty about not getting a shark. I knew I was going to buy some off secondary anyways because I wasn't going to be happy with the one that I got, and I wasn't going to be happy with just having one. I wanted to have two, and I wanted to pick the two that I had. So, I mean, I was just immediately on Solinar, clicking refresh, trying to get them. But then, some interesting things came about after the fact. Redacted J fired off a tweet that says, and I think this is really, really important, Rogue Shark Tank has granted all holders full intellectual property rights. And me, as a medium to long term NFT investor, I would much rather have full IP rights than I would something like royalties. Why? What even is intellectual property in the first place, and why is this a big deal? I'm actually going to defer this to one of my friends who is an attorney, not an IP, but is an attorney and is, educated in these realms, and he's going to help break down what IP is and what does it really mean for your NFTs. Check this. So it's funny you're talking about that, man, because it's so hard now to get focused on work when you sit down at your office and your desk because you're like, that's cool, but do you know what's going on in Twitter right now? it's like something's about to launch, like FTX is imminent, and it's really, really hard to kickstart anything in your life when this is going on.
I really should just leave my phone in my desk drawer or something because it's completely disastrous. I have no self-control whatsoever.
I know. Well, it's hard to because this is like I was talking to my dad about this where I was telling him like, yeah, man, I'm like 10xing my money every week and everything. And he goes, how often are you checking on it? And I said, every 10 seconds. And he goes, yeah, I can't blame you. It's the best thing on TV. And I'm like, yeah, well, there you go. Okay, anyways, so we're here to talk about intellectual property. There was a launch this weekend, the Rogue Sharks, and they came out and said that all holders of the NFTs will have total intellectual property rights to their NFT and the creativity of their NFT. Let's pretend for a moment that I have no clue what even intellectual property or IP is. Can you tell me what IP is?
Well, I'll just first disclaim that I'm not an IP lawyer, but I do know a little bit, and obviously, all disclaimers aside, I'm not your attorney and all that. Right. Don't take this as legal advice and blah blah blah. But in essence, what intellectual property is if you've created something, let's say a book or a piece of art or whatever, movie, whatever. Along with that is attached basically your creative rights, your intellectual property rights. So you can copyright a book or trademark a symbol for advertisement or whatever, and you have the right to use that symbol or to publish that book or what have you, and receive royalties from the use of that intellectual property, depending on what your contracts all say and all that good stuff. So. But the general gist is that intellectual property allows you to use what you have created, your intellectual property, or in this case, if you buy or are assigned those rights, to use those rights to market or otherwise profit from that property. It is like an intangible thing that you currently have in your possession. It's similar to what I guess an NFT is, right? I mean, it's a thing that it doesn't really exist, but you've got a right to it, and you are able to use that right to profit from it.
So if I'm like, and I know again, like we don't know the actual like legalese, the details. You're not my lawyer, all the disclaimers, blah 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 blah. But if I'm just spitballing, like if I have my shark in my wallet now, I could theoretically come up with like a cool idea for a Netflix show centered around my shark, and I could now license it to Netflix and make also, or somebody else could make up a show that want to use my shark, and I could now get royalties from that.
Yeah, I mean that's my understanding of what they're doing. That's exactly right. I mean, you could make a T-shirt brand, sell merch, whatever the case may be. I mean, you own that image in full, at least as according to what their basic premise is, and so from that you can do basically whatever you want with it.
Cool. All right, man. That's all I needed from you. So,
All
all
right,
right.
buddy.
So we're gonna get back to Twitter, and so this still may feel a little fuzzy to you because what's a real world example? What's a real project that grants full IP rights to the holders, and how are they actually using it? The Bored Ape Yacht Club. One of the very first and most successful projects in the entire world granted full IP rights to the users. And this is a big deal because now commercial industries and organizations want apes. They want to advertise apes, but they can't because they don't own an ape. But what you can do is you can say, hey, I've got an ape. You can use it. You can put it on billboards. You can put it in Netflix movies. You can put it on t shirts and shoes or whatever. But I want a cut. You got to give me a cut. I'm entitled to royalties because you're using my ape, and I own that ape. I own everything about that ape. A very popular one that's coming up, let me scroll down just a bit, is right here Jenkins the Valet. Jenkins the Valet is a fascinating idea where somebody unaffiliated with the Bored Ape Yacht Club is going to be building a story, an interactive story about the Bored Apes. Bored Apes are going to be characters. Bored Apes and Mutant Apes are going to be characters in this journey, in this story. So what this person has done is they're putting together a story, and if you buy a writer's room ticket, there's varying degrees of participation that you can get in this, but if you buy one of these tickets and you're a holder of a Bored Ape or a Mutant Ape, then you are immediately entitled royalties from any success that this story has. Now you're still maybe thinking like, is this really a big deal? Jenkins the Valet is so big that they've actually partnered with an LA representation firm, a firm based out of LA for soliciting like movie rights, Netflix rights, comic book rights, and everything like that. That's what's happening here. So if you hold a Bored Ape or a Mutant Ape and you're participating in Jenkins the Valet, guess what? Depending on the tier of Jenkins ticket that you hold, your ape could actually be used in something like, who knows what they're going to do. Maybe they actually land a Netflix contract someday, and now all of a sudden you'll be getting royalties from Netflix because of how you've licensed your ape. Yeah, you can keep your marketplace royalties if I get this kind of access and this kind of entitlement. Because when I'm buying a project, I actually believe in the long-term vision of that project. And I don't believe that the Bored Apes will forever be the only dominant force in NFTs. It wouldn't surprise me one bit if 20 years from now, NFTs in general are so popular and so big because the next generation is raised with them that TV shows will be based off of several different NFT projects. At that point, the people who hold the NFTs and the IP rights, you see what I mean? I like IP rights more than anything else, and the fact that the Sharks gave out IP rights, I think it's a big deal. Now, I asked on my Twitter account yesterday for any other projects that are giving out IP rights to comment on my Twitter feed, and like only 2 or 3 did. So my assumption is, unless you tell me, unless I hear it from your mouth, unless I see it on your Twitter or in your Discord pinned as an announcement, I'm not assuming that you give IP rights out. You have to tell me. You have to say it. So as of right now, I'm very excited about the Sharks. And unless your project comes out and says that you're giving out IP rights, I'm going to stay really excited about the Sharks for that. So, with that being said, was the Sharks launch absolutely perfect? No. There was one small but important accident that did happen. This was the traits and rarity list that was on the Rogue Sharks website after launch. This was what they had published. Now, if I zoom in here, we can see some of the attributes. Let me kind of scroll up and see some good ones here, like the skins. I think this is really important. You see things here like Gold Skin was legendary at the time that this document was produced. Well, guess what? They launched, they minted, this document was still available and in people's hands, and then a few hours later, after mint, after secondary was live, they changed all this. Now, I bought a gold skin. I just kind of assumed it was going to be legendary, and then later after the fact, it wasn't legendary. It was downgraded to super rare. So there were a lot of people who were really, really upset by this, that they made purchasing decisions on secondary based on old information, based on an old document, because the Rogue Sharks accidentally forgot to update the rarity list and the attribute list. Now, to their credit, to the Rogue Sharks' credit, they did say that this document was very fluid, that the new attributes were getting created all of the time, and that this was all subject to change. And to my own credit, I've been through this before. I've seen this before where you expect to be getting one thing, after the fact it's actually something different, and it's kind of upsetting. But at this point, I've been burned by this, and I almost kind of expect it. And, it's a tough lesson to learn. That accidents happen, that these things happen. And if it happened to you, I'm really, really sorry that happened to you, that you made an investment decision based on that. But it does happen. And when I see these things now moving forward, and I'm sure you will too moving forward, that when you see these things, you see them more as a guideline than the gospel. I think they would actually mint. What would have to happen is they would have to actually mint and then come out and say that is the official document after the fact. Or people need to be blowing them up in Discord or Twitter or something and asking them, like, is this document official? Is this still good? Are these still, like, the tried and true traits? Something like that needs to be confirmed before you spend thousands upon thousands of dollars on something just to find out that it wasn't quite what you expected it to be. Again, not to defend them too much, because it was ultimately their fault. They did make a mistake. They forgot to update this document live on their website, and that's a huge bummer. But I kind of expected this. To some degree, I kind of expected, something to slip through the crack, because it always does. This was, this was probably the most high-profile launch NFT since Degen Apes. There was just an unbelievable amount of pressure that this team was under to make sure all of the technical aspects went right. And it did. All of the technical aspects went right. Now, they maybe could have communicated about the 0.1 fee a little bit better, and they could have handled updating this document a little bit better, but I think we really got to cut them some slack here. All in all, this was an exceptionally good mint, and the product that was delivered was exceptionally good. The price action that happened after that is extremely bullish. If I go over to Rogue Sharks, the floor as of right now is 3.49. It is still more than 3 times the mint price. People like the Rogue Sharks. There are a lot of people out there who don't like the Rogue Sharks. They weren't vocal about this until after the Rogue Sharks minted, but after the Rogue Sharks minted, then a lot of people came out and said, I never wanted one anyways. And it was kind of funny, and then they had some legitimate reasons why they didn't want one. But for the most part, the market likes the Rogue Sharks, and rightfully so. It's a high-quality project with a lot of community-driven experiences. The community got to pick things like the attributes. Some people don't like the looks of them. I personally love the looks of them. I really like the 2 that I got. I think they're super clean. I love the patterns. I love the skins. I love the quality and the gold shimmers and shines. I think they did a really, really good job on this project, and I'm very bullish on this project long term. So, was it perfect? Not quite. No mint has been perfect yet on Solana that I know about, or at least no high-profile mint has been perfect. But nonetheless, I think it was a really, really, really good mint, and I'm really, really bullish on this project long term, and I have nothing but respect for the Rogue Sharks and the stuff that they've done up till this point. I think that this was a fantastic experience across the board, and I think that, again, I think this project is going to do well. But this weekend was supposed to be about the Rogue Sharks, but this interesting tweet right here kind of summed up what really happened yesterday. Today was supposed to be the Rogue Sharks show on Twitter, but guess what? The pesky penguins stole the show. 0.25 Sol, quiet minting. Exactly. Nobody really knew about this because, I think very interesting, no influencers. Nobody was paid to shill this. There is now, actually as of the time of this recording, it's over 4 Sol because of nothing more than community and hype. I fired off like one tweet about this and it went absolutely insane. The amount of people that just like blew up my phone after this thing was brrr. Their big catchphrase that they say is newt newt, and it's kind of funny because if you just tweet this out into the open, somebody's going to find it and it's going to go absolutely haywire. This project, Like, the thing about it is, I'm getting the most bizarre and strong Thugbirds vibes about this. Like, this is truly cultish. This is truly viral. Like, people gravitated toward this project in a way that I really haven't seen this since the Thugbirds. It's the best way that I can put it. And not too surprisingly, when you've got that kind of hype and community and belief who's like, we're not taking no for an answer. We're not taking a loss here. Like, there's only one direction for the pesky penguins, and that's up. And that's exactly what's happening here. This caught the team completely off guard. And just, I mean, it's absolutely amazing what's happening here. Now, the main place that I bought mine at was Magic Eden. If I just go to Magic Eden and I search for penguin, you find the pesky penguins right here at first. As I already showed off, though, it's on Alpha Art 2, and you may want to check that marketplace out as well. If we check out the pesky penguins right here, we see, okay, the floor is still rising. As the time of this recording, the floor is now 4.49. There's some interesting mechanics at play here. First of all, one of the things that they do is they have this protocol, this mechanic called the snowball. And as secondary sales happen and royalties come back to the project, an allocation of those funds goes into a wallet called the snowball. The snowball accumulates over the day. It grows and it grows and it grows, much like snowballs do. And then it sweeps the floor and then burns the NFTs. Very interesting that this project is truly deflationary in that sense. It's literally eliminating the less cool or more common NFTs from existence. Now, when does the snowball stop? I think that's going to be a big question to try and figure out. But this project came out of the gate with something new and interesting already, and they have a bot set up in their Discord that actually tracks like how much soul has the snowball accumulated and how many victims has it claimed at the end of the day. I think that's actually really interesting, a way that it keeps the community engaged in watching what's happening here. Very traditional attributes that you're used to seeing things like under types. We've got aliens, we've got robots, we've got zombies, and the purples. Their rarity list is on their website, so you can quickly identify the things that are rare. Of course, they've got blunts, joints, cigarettes, hats. Headbands is one of the legendary items, so that's a pretty hot one out there to try and scoop up. You know, if you've been through the process of like sniping rares before, this one shouldn't be anything new to you. Now, with that being said, there was a little bit of FUD surrounding the pesky penguins. Let's talk about that. Jumping back to OpenSea for a second, I'm going to search for Ducky, and Crypto Duckies is one of the first ones that comes up. Now, this is a project that also launched very recently, and immediately you're seeing to yourself like, oh, well, there's a lot of similarities there, isn't there? There is. There's a lot of similarities in the sense that the body is kind of ovular shaped, right? Well, let's take it back. Let's look at this one by one. First of all, the penguins are wider. They have more pixels wider than they do the duckies. The duckies are more slender and narrow going that way. Also, another thing that points out is in many cases, the penguins are two colors. They've got like this kind of like shadow section or color section and then a white belly. There's that one too. The same thing kind of goes if we were to filter out to just zombies or aliens. You see kind of a similar thing. They've got this like shaded section and then a light green belly. Whereas that doesn't exist for the duckies. It's kind of like just one filled color. So, you know, a lot of people brought this up and said like, oh, copy project, they copied and pasted. Well, first of all, they didn't copy and paste because no two attributes in this entire thing are identical. You can kind of look into it and you can spot differences between them. The actual artist of the penguins came out and said, I definitely borrowed some inspiration. I got some ideas from CryptoPunks, Duckies, and I think he mentioned one more project. Like, he got different ideas, but he did say that all of these attributes were hand-drawn by me. In Discord, that person is known as Penguin King. So, for the most part, there were a couple influencers out there in the wild who were like, I don't know, man, but the market and me totally shrugged that off. This was unique enough to me. They did something unique. In the sense that they got ideas, much like every single project gets ideas from another project, and then they hand drew some attributes, and more than anything, this was a win that Solana NFTs needed right now. It was a pretty dead week. The market in general was down, I think, as a lot of people took profits and rotated capital out of the Solana ecosystem into Bitcoin to chase the Bitcoin run that's going on right now. just like what happens in all market cycles, wouldn't be surprised one bit if, in a few days or a few weeks, it all came right back. I don't know. You can't predict the future. If I could predict the future, I'd be a billionaire right now, but this is just kind of like if I just follow trends, that's kind of what I expect to see at this point. So the week, it was kind of a down and bummer week for a lot of people in the Solana NFTs, and we needed to wake up to Sunday with something just going absolutely crazy, and that's exactly what happened. The pesky penguins went absolutely crazy in a really good way, where a lot of people got in. They identified with these cute little penguins. They collected as many as they could really quickly, and then they've got this snowball mechanic that's actually like buying up the floor and burning things. While people are also accumulating rares, like myself, I bought a zombie, an alien, a robot, and a purple guy smoking a blunt. So I think this is going to be a long-term, really successful project, just because the community's not going to let anything bad happen to it. But also, the team came out and said, like, we were not expecting this, so give us a minute, but we're going to form a DAO. We're going to have all of these things planned. We're going to do these things. We got these things promised. It's all in the Discord. I really recommend you do your own research on this project. Jump into the Discord. Read what the team has planned. Give them some space. Let them digest the fame and the excitement and the hype that they just came into, and let them get their DAO built, because like that's what their plan is to do big things with this project. Now that they have a big project, that's what they're going to do. And I fully believe it, because more than anything, this team has been extraordinarily transparent, way more transparent than most teams are. I think that is a huge kudos to them. They're humble. They're very, very humble in the sense that, like, guys, we're really excited about this too. We weren't expecting this. We're blown away by your love and support. We promise not to let you down. We're moving on to the next step. And that's what we're going to do, but we need a moment to make sure we do this right. And I really, really appreciate that. So I aped into these penguins big time, newt, all the way. You saw it in my frame in the background earlier. I am a believer in this project. I really like what I saw. The community, more than anything, is the driving force of your project. And this community is just rabid. I mean, it's just like Thugbirds. I keep saying that, it's just like Thugbirds. And I gave away 3 Thugbirds, and then I sold 3 Thugbirds, and I tweeted yesterday, I am not making that mistake again. This is what's going to happen. I am buying really good penguins, and I am riding this thing to Saturn, because I'm just not going to miss out on that. So that's what I think about the penguins. I think this is an amazing project. I'm so happy for everyone who got to mint. I'm so happy for everyone who flipped for a profit. I'm so happy for everyone who's getting in now, because they know where this is going to go. But Twitter went absolutely bonkers over these penguins yesterday. There were a couple people who were salty about it, but for the most part, the market, the general pulse in Twitter in general was like, oh, this is cool. I'm in. We need a win. We need to ride something big, and this was it. And it was really exciting to be a part of this community when it's erupting for the first. It's always the most exciting thing. It's just like Red Panda Squad earlier last week, when everybody started tweeting, and Red Panda Squad went absolutely parabolic. It's so fun to be in the Discord when a project takes off and a project launches, and it's so fun to stay in that Discord when the momentum just keeps going. It's a really, really good time. So, kudos to the penguins, and kudos to everybody who's a part of that community and is writing this out. This is awesome. Newt, all the way. All right, last thing we got to talk about is a really, really big one. We're going to circle back to the tweet that I brought up earlier, where FTX came out and said that if you're doing any sort of royalty engagement whatsoever, if you're giving royalties back, or you're advertising that you might give royalties back in some sort of way, that you're out. You're not being in FTX. And you immediately start thinking about the projects, and you're like, okay, well, that means Meerkats, that means Piggies, that means the Arcanes, right? And Cyber Pharmacy. There's a bunch of projects that are giving royalties back now, because that's the hot thing. After the Meerkats did it, everybody wants to copy the Meerkats, because the Meerkats were really successful. They attracted a lot of Ethereum capital. But now we see here that this rule says that you have to stop doing royalties if you want to be on FTX. So your head immediately thinks, well, what do the Meerkats do? We scroll up just a hair. The Meerkats tweeted out an official statement that they tweeted. It's a long official statement. You can kind of scroll in, or you can find it on their Twitter. Basically, I'm just going to give you the sums up. They said, no, that's the gist of it. They said, we're not changing a dang thing. We're going to stay giving our royalties out, and we're just not going to list on FTX. They still say that they have a world of support from other marketplaces like Alpha Art, Solanart, Digital Eyes, Magic Eden, currently support this decentralization, and that's what they're going to do. So this begs the question, like, why did FTX avoid royalties in the first place? Is it some technical issue that's going on? I don't think so. This actually came up in the Gecko's Twitter Spaces that they did last Friday, and it generated a lot of conversation. Somebody asked the Geckos in their Twitter Spaces, do you plan on giving royalties back to your holders someday? And they said, no, our legal team advised us not to do that because the moment we start giving royalties back, the SEC, the Security and Exchange Commission in the United States, could deem that our NFT project is a security. And therefore, it is applicable to securities laws, federal laws in the United States, as well as state laws. And you're thinking right now that this is punishing the project, right? You're thinking that the project has to apply to these laws. It's not really the case. What really has to happen here is the exchanges have to apply to, or have to comply with these laws. Now the exchange becomes a securities trading station, and they have to file all of these reports with the SEC, and they have to apply for permission to operate in all 50 states and territories in the United States. My state that I live in right now is not very friendly towards cryptocurrency exchanges. I can really only use 2 in my state. In New York, you know, we're one of the, like the second largest state by population or third largest state by population, hates cryptocurrency apparently. Like everything is banned there, and it's really hard for New York users to participate in cryptocurrency in some form or fashion. So what FTX wants to do is they don't want these royalties projects in here because they don't want to have to comply with all of these laws now that comes with the fact of now we're trading as security, and we've got NFTs that aren't securities and NFTs that are securities, and we have to keep track of it. And now we're going to have to do all sorts of like KYC and taxes and auditing and everything like that. And it's just a gigantic nightmare for all of these exchanges. So this begs the question, if these projects continue to offer royalties, does that mean all of the exchanges that they participate on are going to have to comply with these laws and these regulations? My gut tells me yes, but I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not involved with any things. Don't take anything I say here as legal advice. It's not. And don't FUD these projects. This is where I was going with this, because your gut reaction goes right now like, oh my God, I got to get out of these before I can't trade them anymore. Don't do that. Like, don't panic yet. First of all, nobody has ruled on this yet. Second of all, there's a lot of arguments against this. The same kind of logic would apply to all of decentralized finance or DeFi. If I put my tokens into a liquidity pool and I get an LP token back, does that mean that LP token is earning a dividend or a reward? And now all of these DeFi exchanges are subject to these, regulations and rules that now they have to apply to all these states. I mean, it would be really, really hard to implement that. What would end up happening is the United States just bans themselves from these types of projects and implementations and innovations. It would also kill a tremendous... it basically kills the entire point of smart contracts is what that would end up doing. So, there's a lot of arguments against that, and this is something that could, potentially be tied up in litigation and lawsuits and everything like that for a really long time. So... I could be wrong. All of this could change tomorrow, for all I know. I'm not privy to these, political conversations or anything. I don't like politics in general. But this is, something that is looming out there that you see, like FTX is taking the safe approach here, that they don't want to be tied up in any of that mess in any sort of fashion. They might know something that I don't know. I would expect FTX does, but nonetheless... that's what's going on. The second thing that I would say about this is take the Meerkats team in general. It's not just a few friends who got together and slapped together a project. They're an actual organization that have a multi-project roadmap in mind. They're very sophisticated. They produced one of the hottest implementations in NFTs in all of Solana that we've seen. I mean, almost instantly it became a top volume trade in the entire ecosystem. Ethereum whales piled into that project itself for a particular reason. That reason might have been royalties, but I've argued, if you've watched my content, you've heard me argue from the get go that the royalties are not actually that big of a deal. It's not to say that they're a small thing, but when you buy NFTs or when I buy NFTs, I'm in it for the capital accumulation. I'm in it to 10x, 20x, 30x, 100x the money because NFTs actually bring that potential to the table. The passive income that's earned from holding it is just an added benefit, but I'm not incentivized to hold it just to get passive income when I'm 10xing my money. I'm going to flip and sell that thing the moment that I can, realize a very significant gain. That's what economics dictates. That's what it should be, right? Otherwise, we would be sacrificing money to make a small amount of money. So the royalties are not a big deal to me in the first place. And if Meerkats came out tomorrow, or any other project came out tomorrow and said, we're just doing away with royalties entirely, I'd be like, that's okay. Like, that's fine. I still really like the Meerkat project. I think they've got an interesting roadmap planned. I like the artwork. I love the artwork. It really grew on me. Its simplicity really grew on me, and I became really fanatical about Meerkats. I love seeing them in my timeline. I love seeing them as your profile picture. But more than anything, when I look at this team, I'm like, well, this is a team that if they get thrown a curveball, they'll just deal with it. They'll come up with something new. I mean, I made this argument yesterday. I don't know the legalese about this, but what if they took the royalties from the exchange and then gave it to a completely separate organization, like Meerkat DAO, make something up, Cat DAO. And that DAO, they're completely, separated from the Meerkat project at that point. The Meerkats have not promised you 1 cent of royalty return, but all the money gets given to the DAO, and then the DAO from there can vote to return the money back to you, or use that money to bolster the Meerkat project. That actually, to me, sounds better than 100% royalties back. I would love it if money was spent on a marketing campaign. I would love it if money was spent on, buying a yacht club. I would love it if there was, CatCon or something like that, where everybody got together and, drank and had a party or whatever. And I would love it if there was a Meerkat merch, and some of the merch you see that they're wearing here in their avatar was actually something you could purchase, and that raised even more money. Do you see what I mean? Royalties are cool, but I think money could be spent in better ways that actually bolsters the project in such a way that the project experiences even more growth and your NFTs become even more valuable. So maybe they give the money to the DAO, and the DAO votes on a 20% royalty back, and then dictates the money goes somewhere else that's more interesting or more important. I don't know. But it just feels like immediately, just in 30 seconds, I'm already brainstorming ways to, we could get around it, or we could, do something better. And I have total faith that the geniuses behind the Meerkat Millionaires Country Club will come up with something totally workable, something that's totally, maybe even better than what they had before. So, I'm not selling my Meerkats. Are you kidding me? I think this is a long-term hold. I really like my Meerkats. I would like to, sell one of them for a profit right now. That way I could buy more off the floor. Just kind of like my geckos. I would like to sell one of my higher-ranked geckos right now just so I could buy more off the floor and have, additional access to liquidity by holding multiple floor items of that. I think that's a better play because I'm heavily saturated in rares right now, not in floors, and I would kind of like to have a mix of both. So I may list one of my high-ranking Meerkats. I may list one of my high-ranking geckos, but my goal is to accumulate more of them because I believe in where they're going in the long run, and I believe in this team and the project itself. So I see a lot of people, fudding over this. I don't know if you've really thought about it, about where could this go? Where could we do? And have you really asked yourself if you have faith in the team to handle a situation like this? I do. I absolutely do. So that's another thing that's happening in the space right now. When you invest in NFTs, my thesis has always been don't ape into everything you see. Be very careful about what you choose. Explore the community, explore the roadmap, explore the team, and ask yourself if this is something that you could sell at Christie's one day. That's always kind of been my thesis. Again, nothing I say is financial advice. You should always do your own research, double check me, and do what's best for you in your situation. But to me, the entire point of playing the NFT marketplace is to make a tremendous amount of money because you're taking on a tremendous amount of risk. And you better be sure about what you buy. And when I paid 300 SOL for Meerkats, I felt very certain about what I'm buying. Absolutely. And I'm very certain about what I'm holding today. So, a lot happened this weekend. A lot. Marketplaces, listings, aping into things with cool artwork. The rogue sharks, the ups and downs, but mostly the ups. The penguins, the ups and downs, but mostly the ups. The meerkats, the ups and downs, and mostly the ups. So much happened this weekend. It's just been an incredible ride, an incredibly wild ride. And the funny thing about it is, I woke up this morning and some whale with like $50 million in their wallet had already started sweeping all of the NFTs across all of the ecosystem. I think I retweeted that too. If you're not following me on Twitter, you need to get over there because share a lot of alpha there. Let's scroll down just a hair. Right there it is. Look at this whale. Look at how much money they got. Good God. This person came in and had 0 NFTs and acquired 655 NFTs in a few hours this morning. So I thought I was going to wake up to a slow morning where I could record, and immediately out of the gate, some whale is coming through and buying up everything in sight. What a time to be alive. What a time to be an NFT holder in Solana, right? That's what's going on this week. I'm tired. Please like and subscribe and comment. That means so much to me. It means the world to me. Everybody, it signals to YouTube that you think I'm doing a good job. It costs you nothing to click those things. So if you like this video, if you like this content, hit those 3 buttons below, and that really will tell YouTube that you think I've done a good job on this video. All right, y'all. Thanks again. We'll see you in the next one.